All right, guys, as you're popping on, you know this man, the myth, the legend, Sheriff Brad Coe, Kinney County. You guys have been very busy over the last 6 months since really we've started talking months ago. Mm-hmm. Nothing has changed for you guys outside of kind of being able to do more. You've been able to kind of take more into your own hands. Talk about what you guys are up against right now.
Well, right now, this is the beginning of the busy season. And fortunately, we have the DPS troopers here. I've got backup from Galveston County. I've got backup from Goliad County.
Where's Goliad County?
Goliad over by Victoria.
Okay.
The sheriff over there has been very, he's our number one supporter, really. He was the first one that joined on with us. Mm-hmm. Galveston County is doing a bang-up job. They're sending people over here, and the numbers are starting to show. And like we were discussing earlier, you know, since mid-January to now, I'll do a demonstration. These are all our smuggling cases from mid-January to yesterday.
And I hate to speculate, but when I was with La Jolla Police, they were saying with each smuggling case, a lot of times it breeds another case because they're tied in with something, or they, you know, it'll bring up something else. So does that happen as well here?
It does. That happens here too, because it'll turn into basic smuggling. Because all of a sudden we find out the guys wanted in 3 other counties for various other things. So yes, it does. It spreads.
So what does that mean for your department? You guys don't have a huge...
We don't have a huge office
force,
here.
You know?
We are busy nonstop. 2 of my daytime deputies, they're probably 4 reports behind on stuff like this because of so much traffic. Mm-hmm. And it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's exciting. I'm having a good time, but it's putting everybody in my county in danger.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that danger, number one, do you feel like you're able to do your job for your community with all of this happening at the same time?
No.
Okay.
My primary job as a sheriff is I'm supposed to be out talking to people, finding out what's going on. How are you? We've got a cold front coming. I've been making phone calls, checking on some of our elderly, make sure that they have food, make sure that they're, you know, if they need propane, let me know. We'll get it before they run out. Right. Things like that. It's a small community, so I'm supposed to be the Andy Griffith of the community. Mm-hmm. Talk to people, make sure that, you know, if they're out of town, swing by, check their doors, make sure they're locked, etc., etc. But
and I think that's foreign for a lot of people that watch because you are such a small community.
We are. We're very small.
If you're tight-knit, you know everybody within your community. So when you can't check on them, that feels personal almost to you.
It does. And when we have severe weather like we're getting ready to have, to me it doesn't matter if I've had them in jail 15 times or I've just met them, I'm still responsible for them. Mm-hmm. So I go out and I check on them. And sometimes I get a little resistance when I knock on the door because they think, do I have another warrant? Does my son have another warrant? No, I'm just here to make sure everything's going to be okay for the winter storm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's the job you don't feel like you're able to do.
And I can't. I used to go to school once a week and hang out with the kids. Mm-hmm. I've been to the school once in the past. Well, I was there yesterday. Didn't have time to read, so I handed out suckers and visited with them a little bit. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow's Thursday. I do fingerprints for the kids on Thursday. We did 5th grade last week. We're doing 4th grade this week. It's basically it's for in case something tragic ever happens, we have their fingerprints on file with their description and DNA and everything. Yeah. And so that's to protect the kids. Mm-hmm. And of course, the kids are all about it. You know, ooh, I'm gonna be fingerprinted. Do I get to go to jail? No, I don't want to ever see you in my jail.
Right.
But no, they're having a good. And we got really good response from the parents. We sent permission slips home to make sure that their kids can go through the process, and we're probably doing 90% of the kids.
Wow. Now, is this in response to all of the activity that's been going on?
No.
Okay, this is just something that your department wanted to do.
This is something we wanted to do, and I thought, you know what, this is the best time to do it. Mm-hmm. I've got a school resource officer. Me and her went up there last week, got all the 5th grade kids, and rolled the fingerprints. Yesterday was sucker day. Tomorrow is fingerprint day again. We're going to do from 5th grade all the way down to pre-K. Oh,
wow. And that's, like you said, you guys are communicating with the parents, you're getting those permission slips, and most parents are on board.
Yeah.
And I hate to speculate, but if I were a parent that had a kid and this was all going on, that would be something that would give me a little bit of peace of mind.
And it can, but it's, you know, of course you do get that pushback. Well, do you expect something to happen? No. This is just a precautionary, it's a feel good for the kids because it shows that we do care about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now going back to the safety of your community, It's not just about migrants, trespassing. We talked about the trespassing last time. We know that right now there are 444 cases being challenged in Austin County that have been charged here. That is, we've kind of discussed that with Brent Smith. So going to instead the direction of it's dangerous because of what's going on outside of that. You guys have pursuits happening here. I mean, you just told me about 2 in the last 24 hours.
Right.
Explain what happened last night and explain what happened this morning.
Well, there was one yesterday morning that was started on Highway 90, and it was right at 6 o'clock, right when I take that back. 6:50, it was about 6:30, and that's when the majority of our traffic starts moving on the highway. And you've got it coming through town. We've got bus routes. We've got 18-wheelers pulling into town, going both directions. You've got this person driving. They were hitting speeds of 100 miles an hour in a pickup. And fortunately, when they ended up going through the fence and rolling over, there was nobody in the bed of the pickup. But we still had to transport 5 of them to area hospitals. And you think, well, it's just 5 of them. We only have 2 ambulances. Both of them were used. Had a citizen or somebody else had a heart attack or whatever, we would have had to call for assistance from another county.
How many beds does the hospital have even?
We don't have a hospital here.
So they have to go where?
They either go to Uvalde or Del Rio. That's a 45-minute hour trip either way.
And then that's a hit on the county, right? Because that's money.
Right.
No, they're not paying for the ambulance, right?
No.
So is that something that has to come out of Kinney County?
The ambulance ride does, but it still left our community unprotected. We had the fire and rescue out there also because with the rollover, it could start a fire. The brush could catch on fire, and as dry as it is, it could have been a catastrophe. But fortunately, we only had to transport 5, and as far as I know, they're all still alive. So, but it takes the resources away from those who pay for it. The one this morning went up one of the back roads, and we're thinking the driver was a female because some of the stuff was left behind in the truck. And she wasn't a very good driver. She was all over the road. Was that what initially tipped it off that was needed to be stopped, or how do you guys initially figure out that there's that part there I'm gonna kind of skip over because that's part of our probable cause to stop it.
Okay,
I don't want to give away all the clues.
That's fair. So, you gotta do your job. I gotta ask. I gotta do my job, man.
Yeah. But when the deputy tried to stop them, they took off 80 miles an hour on a back road that's just barely wide enough for 2 vehicles. She's driving in both lanes of traffic. I say she. They were driving in both lanes of traffic. And we've got traffic coming into town. We've got schools, people bringing their kids into school, people coming to work, people going out of town to work. And it can get pretty hazardous, especially on these small, tiny back roads. Well, they hit a certain spot. Off through the fence she went, took out about 200 feet of fence line, which is probably going to cost the rancher $5,000-$6,000 to fix. And that's just yesterday and today. And if that happens, the rancher, that's fully on the rancher. They have to deal with that. And that's one of the things we need to try to get through legislature, either whether the state level or the federal level, that when something like this happens, they can be reimbursed. Because you can't repair your fence day in and day out as a rancher trying to make a living raising cattle, sheep, goats, and make a profit. Someone said the woman couldn't have been too stupid if she got away. She didn't get away. No, we ended up catching her. You guys got all of them. Yeah, we ended up catching her. Yeah. And then, like you said, the others had to be transported or whatever happens. And that is resources that you guys don't have. Resources we don't have. Okay. So how often were these pursuits happening? Let's say 6 months ago, or let's say a year ago. If we go back 6 months, we were having very few, 1 or 2 a month. Because we were prosecuting them as hard as we could, and we were prosecuting them for the criminal mischief of driving through the fence. Okay. But because it's an agricultural setting, it makes it a felony. So it was tacking time on to the other felonies that they had committed. So now we're starting to see a trend in it again, and it goes in cycles. And I was kind of thinking, well, maybe we'll do that cycle, but now it's starting up again. Oh, okay. And this is kind of when everything starts to crop up a little bit more. We saw last year when it all really started was the end of February and early March. Right. So are you worried? Yes, because I compared the numbers from last January to this January, and our numbers were double. The number of smuggling cases, the number of illegal aliens that we apprehended, the number of pursuits, it's all doubling.
Just in Kinney County.
Just in Kinney County.
Oh.
And that's not counting DPS or Border Patrol. That's just the deputies.
And I think that's what people need to know too, is because those numbers that Border Patrol has put out have already surpassed the 2020 numbers for the fiscal year. From October to January or December. We don't even have January's numbers from Border Patrol, right? Because we're still in January. We've surpassed prior years already in just 3 months.
And we're doing the same thing
in Kinney County.
Just with the same number of deputies. And God only knows what DPS is catching, because yes, we communicate, but we can't communicate everything all at once. So yes, there's some things that slip through the cracks that I'm not aware of. The same thing, there's things that slip that they're not aware of. So yeah, we need to do a little bit better communicating, but we're so busy we can't.
Right. And last time we had talked, you were talking about that this was the only county really doing the trespassing charges, things like that. Is that still the case? Have other people? I know Operation Lonestar has its own thing right now with the House Democrats trying to investigate it. So I don't know if it's expanding or kind of at a standstill.
No, it's getting ready to expand if it hadn't already.
Okay.
Because I know Maverick County is coming on board. We were the...
And Maverick County is where Eagle Pass is, you guys, if you need to know.
We were the experiment.
Okay, the tester grounds.
We were the test grounds, the guinea pig. But we worked through the problems we had as we went along. So we've pretty much got a routine going. So now Maverick County can mirror ours and hopefully come up with the same results. Now one thing, you're talking about the 400 cases that are being challenged in Travis County. Travis County has no jurisdiction over Kinney County. So why are they looking? Even if Travis County says, you know what, we find that these people are all innocent or guilty or whatever the case may be, their court has no jurisdiction in Kinney County. So why are they doing this? They're grandstanding. They're trying to draw attention to where? Travis County, the state capital, which is a little more liberal than the rest of the state. So they're not wanting to come here to interview or try the cases or try to get them dismissed. They're going to a more liberal courtroom setting. So
it's by design, right?
It's all by design. It's all by design. They're court shopping.
Okay.
And the judge up there wants to say they're dismissed or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. So they're just wasting taxpayer time.
Now we had this conversation a little bit off camera. These people that are coming in, there was a conversation about you're stopping them from getting to their destination, really, right? Like some of these people, playing the devil's advocate, we always have to look at both sides. Some of these people, are fleeing persecution, and this is maybe the way they think they are supposed to come through. Or, the coyotes and smugglers have told them this is what you're supposed to do. We know the messaging is all wrong. We know it's all messed up and convoluted on that side. So, is there a better way to do this, or to help them, or is it just the messaging, or what? Because it's continuing at a really large number right now.
It's in the messaging. But when we put the message out in the United States, the cartels and the smugglers, everybody can take that wording, because you can't translate literally from English into Spanish.
Right.
There's a language barrier there on certain terms. So you take a group of people that are from the interior Mexico who work on ranches or farmers or whatever, and tell them the complete opposite. They don't know the difference. So here they come. But there's a proper way to do it. If you're fleeing persecution or whatever, you can report they can come to the port of entry and say, hey, I'm looking for asylum because of this, this, and this, and then work it out from there. But to come across and trespass on somebody's land, tear up their windmills, tear up their water troughs, their fences, steal their vehicles, that's where we have to draw the line. That's where I come in.
And with that, so what is Brent has talked about a little bit, but so you guys come in, do you turn them over to Border Patrol? Do you keep them in your jail? Like, what happens to a trespasser?
But the trespassers we catch, and DPS is doing 99% of it, they're picked up, they're advised of their rights, they're taken, the probable cause is all done, they're taken to the facility in Del Rio, they're given their magistrate warnings, make sure that they've been advised of their rights, that they have the right to an attorney. They set a bond, and from there they're transported to a facility in Dilley, Texas.
Now, how do you feel about, we just saw, you said that there's speculation that the woman was the driver of this situation transporting these Mexican nationals, right? So with that, How do you feel about with the trespassing cases? These women aren't being charged. There's no place to hold them. I mean, and I'm like, wait. Women are capable of some stuff, and that's case in point, right? So,
yes.
So what's the solution there? Why? I mean, that messaging is going to get back.
It's going to get back. So
you guys are going to start getting a lot more women, I would think, coming over.
We see it in trends. There'll be, like on your trespassers, some groups are all men, and then there's some that do have their wives with them, or there's kids with them. So there's a process that's there. Well, we're not going to separate a husband and wife. We're not going to separate the kids. This, that, and other. But eventually, we're going to have to find a place for women because we're going to see more of them. And finding a place to house women is extremely difficult and it's extremely expensive.
Okay. You can't just put up a soft-sided tent somewhere and call it good.
No.
There's people that will be mad about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So last time we talked also, we were discussing that you had gotten a call from the Secretary himself talking about the border wall that was going to be kind of restarted to, quote, fill in gaps that were maybe environmental. They were talking about flooding, etc. They didn't really want to say that they were just doing the wall again, Sheriff. And where are we at with it?
They didn't even say where they were going to start.
Okay.
We're going to do a little here, a little there, whatever. But the thing is, when Obama started building the wall, everybody praised him. When Trump said he was going to continue it, everybody hated him. And now they're talking about continuing on, but I really haven't seen anything else on the news. Nothing about it. Where it started, hasn't started. Are they doing McAllen? Are they doing Yuma? Where?
Yeah, I've been trying to find it. And I can't find it. I've seen the Texas wall. I went and searched that out in Rio Grande City, but I have not, and in Eagle Pass, the Governor Abbott wall that they started. Because that one, and that's kind of, that was very interesting because but days later, basically, the administration made the calls that they were going to start doing that.
Now, being the devil's advocate here, okay, we're gonna start the wall again. So you take two guys in a truck, and they start patching the wall together. Have they restarted the wall? Yes, they have, but they haven't done it to what you would expect. So, is that the case? Did he find 5 or 6 guys to go out there and start lining things up?
So it's almost like lip service, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have seen that. I hate to. I always try to be as objective as possible. We have seen that. The policies that they're claiming are in place are not the same policies. So they are coming off as they're doing something, but it is lip service because these policies aren't doing what the American people think they are doing. Right. They are not the same policies under the Trump administration, good, bad, or indifferent. They are not the same. People hear that they're in place, but they're not realizing that they are this watered down version just to put out there for people to see that something's happening.
Or they changed the wording just enough to make it seem like they're going to do this, but it's in a 7-page memo. And unless you're a lawyer, anything more than a 2-page memo is hard to read, especially if it's on a computer screen. For me, I have to have paper so I can write my questions out. But if they produce it and it comes out from, and I've seen this before, depending on who it's from, you look at the name, it's from Joe Blow, right in the trash.
Yeah. So now the other thing that you guys were doing, and it wasn't lip service, was you started deputizing some people to have backup, just to, and I mean, you guys are doing everything that you can as to be proactive too, I mean, the numbers are there, so you needed it. Have you deputized any more? You were at 3 last time.
We're still at 3.
3? Have you seen a need to pursue other people, or
at this time? I would like to, but I don't have the vehicles, I don't have the equipment, I don't have some of the things I need to really put them out to lend a hand. So I'm still waiting on vehicles that we ordered last March.
Oh wow! Who does that come through?
Well, it has something to do with the chip shortage. I don't know, the chip that runs the computers.
Okay.
So we've ordered 7. The first one just hit the dealership, I think, last week.
Okay.
But it's taken a year to get that one vehicle. So the supply chain, it has its issues. It affects everybody from the head of Apple all the way down to me, who's just trying to go to the grocery store and buy food.
Yeah, that's true. So, when you have these situations in your community and you're seeing these numbers go up and you're doing everything that you can, what is the next move for you guys? This isn't slowing down.
No.
In the last 6 months, like you just said, you looked at the numbers that you have right now. They have doubled the last year. So So what's the course moving forward for you guys? I mean, your resources are already strapped, so.
The only thing we can do is keep praying for us, and we just have to keep doing what we can with what we've got. With the 6 deputies I have, the full-time ones, when I count my school resource officer, make it 7 full-time deputies. Honestly, I couldn't ask for a better crew. I couldn't. They work their 5-6 days a week, 14 hours a day, and I get very few complaints. As you can see, the stack here, even when they're tired, they're hungry, they want to go home, they see something, they check it out, ends up being a smuggling case, they come in and do it. So I've worked with a lot of people, and this is one of the best crews I've ever worked with.
How's the morale? Like, how are they doing? I know, we've seen Border Patrol, we've seen these other agencies that are maxed out. Yours is really no different. What's the morale for you guys here?
One of the driving forces is, I treat them, they're deputies, they're law enforcement officers. They're sworn to do their job, and they take that oath very seriously. However, with a small agency, I have the time to interact with them. I can bring them in here just before they go home and set them down, or if I see them first thing in the morning. How are the kids? How's your mom? Is your mom okay? You haven't mentioned her in a couple of days. You've got an upcoming vacation. Where you plan on going? And so I kind of treat them like, and they are. They're all, with the exception of one, are the same age as my oldest kid. So I've got that connection with them. We can discuss certain things, certain movies that I know that they like, and so it's kind of a family atmosphere. Do we have our squabbles? Oh yeah. Brothers and sisters have to squabble from time to time. But overall, they're a great group. And I'm not talking just the deputies in the field. I'm talking about the dispatchers, the jailers, the girl that comes in and cleans every day, the girl that sits up front taking bonds. Everybody, we're small. We have to interact. And granted, we have our good days and our bad days, but most of them are good days.
Now, I know that you guys had put in for some funding. Did you guys get some of that? I don't remember how much it was. We had talked about it too.
When all of this started, they asked, "What would it take to get the job done? What do you need from the state?" So the county attorney put in, requested some stuff. The judge, myself, and when it all came out, we got $3.1 million. And the closest one to us was, I think, Val Verde County. He got $2.2 million. So I'm not saying we wrote it up better, but I'm saying
we wrote it up better.
The governor liked me a little better. I don't know. Maybe I'm better looking than Joe Frank. I don't know. But
that's on camera. We're going to tell Sheriff.
But
so what are you guys doing with that? Have you gotten that? What does that look like?
Well, what we do is we have, say on the vehicles, we have to buy them first, and we can be reimbursed. So the money's there, but part of the checks and balances is if we need file cabinets, computers, the county will purchase it. We send them the invoice. We get reimbursed, and so that's working to me very well. Okay. Under Operation Lonestar, I've been able to hire 3 additional part-time deputies, which is making an impact. But if I can get them, but they all have other jobs, other working for other agencies or something. So I don't get to have them all the time. Yeah. And it's tough finding people right now to work.
A lot of people are thanking you and your county and for what you guys are doing. They're very grateful for you on this one. So now, somebody said, yeah, we just talked about the $3 million, guys. So relax on that. But so with the criminal activity here, right? We've seen the numbers go up. But there's the other side, right? But they're not all criminals. They're not all bad guys. These people, a lot of them are coming in this way because they can't self-surrender, because they would qualify to be, right, expedited removal. So with that said, have you seen an uptick in crime? Have you seen issues in your community that are being caused by this influx of people?
We're seeing more and more burglaries. Not in town, but within the county. The hunting lodges or the houses, the ranch houses, the barns are being ransacked, vehicles are being stolen. We've seen a huge increase in that area. Okay. But
what's the feedback from your citizens, from your constituents? Are they worried? Is this like, we got this? What are they saying?
Well, they're worried, but the part that's scary is some of them are starting to get used to it. And you start, like I said before, the more you tolerate, the more you allow. So it's not a good thing. But we're so tied up with the phone lines and everything else that they say, well, I'll call, but are you going to be able to respond? I'd like to say we could respond to every call at that particular moment, but we can't. We don't have the personnel. But I can use that information, and even though we don't get out there for 2 days, we can still use that information to justify more people, more personnel, more equipment to get the job done.
Okay. Now, Brent was talking about there's been instances where people are getting confronted at their gates, where people are in their vehicles, and migrants are trying to pull them out of their vehicles. Is this happening?
Yes, we had one not too long ago. I'd say about less than a month. The guy, he's the foreman of one of the local ranches, and he's an H-2 visa holder. He's from Mexico. He's out there cruising on the ranch and sees somebody laying in the road. He stops to check on him because he's a human being. Here I am. I'm healthy. I need to see what's going on with him. Well, he goes up there to check him. He gets jumped, and they take his vehicle, and off they go across the ranch, leaving him on foot. Fortunately, he was headed back to the barn to get fuel because his truck was on empty, and they found the truck about 10 miles up the road out of gas. But
that seems like it's the border crisis in a nutshell.
And the part that upset him the most was he's a Mexican citizen. The people that jumped him were Mexican citizens. And he's trying to talk to them, say, hey, look, I'm a Mexican citizen too. But they didn't care. And he was trying to help a fellow countryman. And how did they repay him?
Is that the incident where there were brass knuckles involved? Didn't the
I think
guy
that's
in the
the
ground
one.
have brass knuckles? This is,
So it would be like you and me being, I don't know, for lack of a better place, China, and I see you're having problems, and I stop to help you because we're fellow Americans. You pull a gun on me and take my car,
Yeah, that's definitely tough. Now, that was about a month ago. How's he doing? Has he recovered? That's pretty.
Well, he didn't get beat up.
Okay,
they
good.
just kind of like,
Okay.
there's 6 of us, 1 of you were taking your car.
Oh, okay.
So, was he mad? Oh yeah, he was livid, and part of the fact was he got jumped by fellow countrymen that took his car, and so yeah, he's got a right to be mad. He's got every right in the world to be mad.
What's the biggest frustration that you hear from people in Kinney County?
Just the people walking through the property. It's one thing to walk through a man's backyard, but when you destroy things maliciously, I don't know if you've ever seen some of the water troughs on some of the ranches. They're very tall, 6-7 foot long. Got a float on one end to keep the water level up. Well, the animals will come up and drink out of it, but moss appears on the top. So what a lot of them will do, instead of just, and we've done it before, you push the moss off the top, get down there and drink it. It's clean water. They'll put a rock on top of that float to hold it down until the whole trough is clean, clearer water, and they'll get what they want, get what they need, and walk off. But they leave the rock on top of the float. So the rancher comes by 2 days later, he's got a swamp out there. So which means either A, his windmill's pumping, of course with that float down, the windmill's doing extra duty, the pump doing extra duty. If it's an electric pump, it's running nonstop. It's little things like that.
And that all lands on the ranchers.
Yeah.
And like the Connollys, her son is out there fixing water lines and fences almost
day
every
in,
day.
day out. Right.
And they're like, we can't keep up with this. It's not even just that he has to be spending his time doing that, but it's the cost. It does cost them something.
Costs
and they're
money.
like, we have a ranch, and unfortunately people look and they're like, oh, you must be doing really well. You have all this acreage, and they're like, but everything matters.
Costs.
And they're losing. And talk to me a little bit about the hunters, because Kinney County has a lot of private hunters that come and rent out ranch lands, and they have blinds out there. And I've been told that migrants are in the blinds and things like that. Have you heard that?
I've heard it, seen it. There was one that was floating around on Facebook about a month ago. The hunter's in his blind, and he's filming, and you can count them. They walked right by the feeder, right where he was waiting for the deer to come in, and there was, I think, 12 or 13 of them just walked by like they owned the place. And of course the comment he made was nothing like hunting in South Texas. But if you're driving the animals away, they're not coming into the feeders, your hunters aren't happy. So now you've got, I don't know, $150,000, $200,000 wrapped up in exotic animals, and nobody's coming to hunt them. What do you do?
Yeah, and they're just saying, you know, we come out here to kind of relax, get away from it, and then they don't feel safe.
Yeah,
or they're just like, man, come on. And that's kind of what I've heard is they're like, it's not so much that they think they're going to get killed or jumped.
You go to open up the blind, and you've got people in there sleeping, or they've destroyed the inside of your blind. They've torn up your heater. There's lots of things. I want to bring something up when it comes to the animals. Some people I know, they've got about 50,000 acres leased, and they've got all their cattle out there, and they've got $500,000 worth of cattle. But there's aliens walking through the property all the time. And when they get to the water troughs to check them, there's cigarette butts everywhere. What if? We're going to play the what if card here. And with as dry as it's been, what if it starts a fire? You got the grass growing, it's dry, you've got a lot of fuel for that fire. Cattle, they're going to run like every other animal. Or they're going to get to that fence and either A, they're going to die of smoke inhalation, burn, trample each other to death. So now you've lost $500,000 worth of cattle. Plus, you look at the nature side. Your snakes, your lizards, your tortoise, your turtle, your rabbits, your native animals, they perish. Where's PETA? You know, they want animals treated ethically. Where are they? How come they're not making a stand on this? Because a rancher can lose everything in one fire. And if it's started by a man by an illegal alien who threw a cigarette down and started a fire, that rancher just lost everything, or most of everything. Could be a house, it could just be a structure. We've seen places where the aliens have gotten in to build a fire at night. Next thing you know, the whole place is on fire. So they're losing structures, they're losing barns, they're losing camp houses. And we, being on part of the fire department also, we go out and we have to fight these fires. So we lose a lot of the natural, the grass, the trees, animals. But when it comes to animals, where's PETA?
Yeah, and the other thing, I mean, the Connollys were saying that most of their cattle are black, and if they get out at night, that's a hazard to all of your public, you know, people driving through the area too, and that's a different layer, you know, than them just being out, and so that's something that they have to face too.
Hitting a steer is a whole lot different than hitting a raccoon.
Yeah, I hit a raccoon the other day. Was it night before last? Yeah. It is. I mean, I would think so, Sheriff.
Yeah, hitting a cow can kill somebody.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing that they don't look at. Well, and what's the phrase I'm looking for? Some of these ranchers have large amounts of land, but they're on a very tight budget. So they refer to as land rich, cash poor. That's their livelihood. Just because you own a business doesn't mean you're a multi-billionaire. We all can't be Apple or Telsa or anybody. You own 3,000 acres, you got a lot of money tied up in it. Your fence, your cattle, your hunting, your equipment to keep the place running. So your budget's really, really tight. Cattle prices don't go up that fast. But the materials to build your fence, your feed, your hay, go up very fast. So you're on a very, very tight budget.
And everything counts. Like when Connollys lost a couple of ranchers. They dipped out early because of that. They were like, this isn't why we came here.
Right.
And so that's thousands of dollars that they lose, that they need to feed their, to have the cycle go, right? They all rely on that.
And some of these ranches lease out for $50,000 a year for hunting rights.
Wow.
And you take $50,000 away from anybody. That's a chunk of change. And if you lose it this season, if you lose it early in the year, you can probably find somebody else to release it. But if it's just before deer season, they pull out, you're hurting. Yeah. Especially if you're counting on that money. If that's part of your operating budget. That's in a lot of places, that's 2 years' salary.
Now, can you tell me, we've seen more and more law enforcement come into your county to supplement, kind of, right? We had Galveston Police were even on the Connollys Ranch. We have seen National Guard out here. Is that something that you see as welcome, or is that something that people are seeing as, like scary? When you see that much law enforcement coming into your community, does that crop up feelings of uncertainty for your constituents, I guess is my question.
Well, you're always going to have those naysayers, always. But for the majority of them, they welcome them, especially the guys from Galveston. And they walk into the restaurants, man, the locals here love them. They've considered them part of the family now. So it's a good thing. Plus, it does help. It does boost the morale around the county. Okay, we've got law enforcement here. Things are being caught. We've got more people. So they have to eat, so they hit our restaurants. They go to our grocery store. They buy. All the troopers are buying fuel here in town, so that's helping our only gas station stay afloat. And they're hitting the restaurants. They're, of course, some of them come in. They pack their own lunch and they're sitting out in the field all day, but they're used to seeing them here.
Okay.
And it was when they had the COVID outbreak and they had to send a bunch of troopers home. I heard about it. Where are the troopers? I hadn't seen any troopers. But as soon as the troopers come back, I hear from some of the same people, the troopers are here. They're following me everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, Operation Lonestar, obviously something that has, in your words, has been a supplement to you guys, has been something that has been helpful. So the National Guard, there's obviously been some conversations that have been happening. There's been some lawmakers down here saying that these guys aren't doing anything. What is the National Guard presence here, and what are they really able to do? Because, I've even encountered them, and I'm like, are you going to arrest me? And they're like, that's not our job, ma'am. And the way I've kind of looked at it as, it's a precaution, it's proactive versus reactive, because Del Rio was very reactive. And it appears that these things have kind of come after that, so that we don't see another situation like that happen. What are you experiencing, and what are you seeing with the National Guard here?
Well, the ones that we have here, they're going out at night. They're doing what they call LPOP operations. They're hitting the heavy traffic areas where we know the aliens are coming through, and they're making the arrests there. The ones, I'm sure you saw them down on 277. They're parked in their Humvees with binoculars. Day in and day out, that can be very boring. I agree. I've done it. But they're also seeing things and calling them in, and we're making the arrests. So they might not jump in the Humvee and go chase them.
No. But they're telling DPS down the road, hey, this was suspect, or I saw this person. By the time they get to you.
Yeah. Or we saw a group load up.
Okay.
This is what they're driving. This is the license plate. This is the way they're going.
Okay.
So they're helpful. But I understand the feeling of the National Guard. Well, we were sitting down here to help, but we're just sitting in a Humvee looking. No, you're helping. Even though it may seem like the most boring job in the world, as long as they're sitting there, they're not going to come to that spot. And if you've got them set up right, you can kind of triangulate and watch both sides. Now, granted, I'm sure at night it's very boring. Crickets, animals, and depending on what you did the day before, what your attitude is going to be at night. Are you taking turns? Is somebody, sitting up on top watching for an hour, then you switch places, go down, listen to the radio, eat a sandwich, and then switch out every 30 minutes or whatever. But yes, it can be very boring. So in that aspect, they feel like they're not doing anything. And
that's not all of them, because you've got because there's a ton of NG guys that are part of these ops at night. I've been out there with them. The elite brush team are insanely trained and skilled in finding these people in this ridiculous terrain, that black brush out there
it's tough.
With those thorns. I've run through it with these guys, right? So these National Guard aren't just sitting on the sidelines. There are some that are heavily trained that you guys aren't seeing. Watch some of my videos.
Yeah.
I'm out there with them. We just can't show their faces because they're on special ops. It's a really dicey situation for them.
But it's the ones that aren't part of the limelight. They're either the office worker, they're filling orders for fuel or whatever. And yes, that can get very, very boring, I'm sure. And sitting on the side of the road waiting for something to happen can also get very boring. But in their boredom, they're still preventing.
Okay. I definitely will put that out there for them because they, I haven't talked to any specifically. After Beto O'Rourke came to Laredo, I went and talked to some National Guard members because he had talked to some who had said that they hadn't encountered a single migrant. Well, I'm at Stripes, right? When these 4 guys get out of the truck, and I'm like, hey, I'm looking for you. Because they're National Guard. And they're like, what? They don't want to talk. And I'm like, I'm not putting you on camera. I just have a question. I said, did you hear that Beto O'Rourke was here? And they said, yeah. I said, did you hear that he said that these National Guard members have not encountered a single immigrant? And they start boisterously laughing. And they were like, what? That's insane. They're like, this is nonstop. We have been so busy. Border Patrol can't hire people fast enough. Like, they were saying a completely different story.
Well, but it's one of those things also. He probably I'm not saying who he talked to, but he may have talked to a captain or a lieutenant and said, Captain, have you seen any? well, I haven't personally. Okay, then so you haven't seen any. Then he
Well,
goes
you
and
can
tells
find
everybody.
what you're looking for, I
Yeah.
suppose.
So
Okay.
he shops around, gets the answer he wants, and then he puts it out there.
So, in the beginning when we first met, we talked about, there's not one solution to this. We know that. What do you think is a start? What do you think is a move in the right direction for this? Because I thought, okay, maybe just having the sheriff's departments be able to communicate with DPS more, but then it's like that puts more on you guys with already a strapped department, right? So that might not be the best course. So what do you see?
Well, it changes. Literally, it's changing on a weekly basis. I think the troopers being here, the ones that are motivated, the National Guard guys that are going out in the brush, that's a great start. They're filling in the gaps that Border Patrol can't handle right now because of everything going on. The fact that the National Guard's here is bringing attention to, yes, there's something going on at the border. Why are they there? And yes, you're going to have those that they may be here 3, 4, 5, 6 months and not make a single apprehension. But you also got to look for the other guy that's been here for 3 weeks and he's apprehended 200. So, but no, I think it's a step in the right direction. We just need to probably sit down a little more often than we do, because I try to contact the DPS captain and the sergeants, but I know they're busy and I'm just as busy, and sometimes we don't really get to communicate the way we should. And it's kind of like a brother-sister relationship. Can't stand to be away from each other, but when we're together, we argue and fight. And sometimes we don't make enough time to sit down and settle the differences so that we can all be on the same playbook. Because you know how brothers and sisters interact sometimes. Or if you get two competitive brothers, then we have some headbutting going on. And sometimes
don't know a lot of your history. Tell me first, have you ever experienced numbers like this, a situation like this? Before we get into your history, have you ever, in your time being in law enforcement?
No. And I've been in law enforcement for let's see, 42 years now, and 38 of them have been here in Kinney County, and I've never seen it like this here before. I've seen big numbers come through. We've seen them on the trains. We've seen them, but when my guys catch 9 smuggling loads in a weekend, and I've only got 2 people out working, 3 people out working at any given time, that tells me, and I know we're not catching it all. So that tells me that we're under siege.
And you've seen some things go down through your history.
Well,
what have you done with Texas? What you've been on the front lines for, like you said, 42 years?
Yeah, 42 years. We've seen the pendulum go back and forth. A lot of crossings to very few crossings. And I remember nights for my whole crew, we're talking 10, 12 people working, we might have 5 or 6 smuggling loads in one night. But I'm covering the whole county, covering different parts of the county. I've seen where I've walked into groups of 40 or 50 that were waiting to be picked up, pulled a couple of hundred off of a train. But when Operation Stone Garden started, the deputies here would catch 1, 2 loads a month maybe, call us, we'd come pick it up, process it the whole 9 yards. But when, like today, this morning, we've already caught 2. After midnight we caught 2, so we're up to 4 for this. It's what, 3:30 now, so in 15 and a half hours we've caught 4 smuggling loads. And they're caught by 2 were caught by one girl and 2 were caught by the other girl. So that tells me there's a lot going through here that we're missing. The pictures I get on a daily basis, the sign that we're cutting, that my intel guy's going out and finding and cutting that nobody's apprehending. When he counts 1,000 tracks and he's only working 3 days a week, what are we losing? Never seen it like this before.
Wow. Now, you've been in Border Patrol too, for people, right? You worked literally those lines as well.
Part-time. I did 31 years.
Wow.
So
what, and very different than now. What would you compare the two? There
during different administrations, different programs, there'd be nights we'd work we're right down on the river, on the border area. We might go 2 or 3 nights without catching anything, but we were there, deterring. And then there were nights that we'd catch 100, 150, and doing the same thing that we did when they were catching nothing. checking the traps, checking the guidelines, checking the water, checking everything. And it just depended on the administrative, what was going. When our economy's good, Mexico's fine. We are in a slump right now. The old man told me, when the United States sneezes, Mexico catches the flu. If Mexico catches the flu, based on that, if Mexico catches the flu, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, full-blown pneumonia. So the way our economy sits here is a direct correlation to what kind of traffic we're going to have coming. Right now, I know it's a bad analogy, but we have COVID. Mexico has pneumonia. So our economy is, for lack of a better word, our economy right now sucks. Record inflation, shortages, everything. Those people depend on the United States for their well-being. What happens? We're having issues, they're having bigger issues. That's part of it. The other part is, come to the United States, I'm president now, I welcome you with open arms. And he said, you're going to change some policies? Boom, here they come. Because of the language barrier. Those that be in charge down there, the cartel situation, change the language to whatever they want it to be. And here they come. I'll get you there for X number of dollars.
Like you said when they were talking about that reparations and the $450,000, that's still something some of these folks believe
that's
is
going to
happening.
happen. But nobody's retracted that yet. Nobody from this administration that I've seen has come out and said, you know what, the $450,000, I was misquoted. You know, I shouldn't have ever said that. I retract that statement. Let's go forward.
I think they tried to kind of write it a little bit, but, you know, even the NGOs are saying the messaging is getting lost and it's wrong. And so I think that would be a start, is to make it very clear, whether it needs to be in every presser or not, I don't know. But to pretend it's not happening and to just sit on your hands, I don't think that's the move forward either.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. Now, obviously, we've seen the Border Patrol video that got out there. You were in Border Patrol. How did that make you feel, seeing those guys, seeing Chief Ortiz, who we both know? Mm-hmm. How did that make you feel, seeing that video? What's your reaction?
The agents themselves, they have legitimate questions. They have legitimate concerns, because at the end of the day, they have to go home and live with what they've done for the day. And I kept trying to I tell my deputies this day, once you leave here, forget about it. It's the past. We can't change the past. He got asked a very tough question, and it was in front of basically his boss. And I think he may have overreacted, but I wasn't there to say. But seeing the video and everything, he's got a tough job. I mean, he's in the spotlight, and but then you get a bunch of disgruntled guys together. Some of them will talk, some of them won't. Some of them will voice their opinions, whether it's professional or not. And I think what happened was somebody in that group voiced their opinion, and when it probably could have been addressed a different way, but the question came out, you're not doing enough for us, blah, 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 and he immediately went on the defense. Yeah, guys, look, I've been in your shoes. I've been there, done that. I used to have the same argument with my dad when he was an assistant chief in Del Rio, and I was just a ground agent over here. I had the same questions. And a lot of it was, well, that's just the way it is. And when I took this job, asking questions as to why this happens here, well, that's the way we've always done it. That's fine, I understand it, but why? It's just always the way we've done it. And I told the deputies and everybody, and I used to tell some of the new supervisors or the new patrol agents that were coming in, the story of the three monkeys, about the food, and every time they reached for the banana, they got hit with cold water. Well, after a period of time, they pull a monkey out, put a new monkey in. He's never been doused with cold water. He reaches for the banana, the other two monkeys beat the crap out of him. And this goes on until none of the monkeys have ever been doused with cold water. But as soon as one of them goes for that banana, the other two beat the crap out of him, because that's the way it's always been done. Mm-hmm. If he has a justification, if there's something that can be put in writing, or say, hey guys, look, this is why, you just can't come out and say this is the way it's always been done. Mm-hmm. They need to change some things up. And some of the things, they probably need to sit down, rewrite some of the laws, rewrite some of the policies, so that Border Patrol can actually do their job.
Well, and the thing is what they're doing right now isn't how it's been done for a lot of them, right? They aren't able to do what they were doing.
Right.
They're processing for the most part, aren't they? Like,
they're spending a lot of time.
I talk to, they're like, we literally are sitting down, writing numbers down, calling sponsors and processing, and that's it.
And there were periods of time when the Border Patrol was smaller, that as the prosecution officer and as the screening officer, I had to do the same thing. Get all the files on a daily basis and call camps. Okay, do you have room for 7 El Salvador? Do you have room for this? Do you have room? I was calling there from Miami to San Diego, California, trying to find camp space. Nope, we can't find it. So, okay, we have to cut these loose, give them an OR, and let them go. And one of the biggest pushes was back in, I'd say around 92, 93, it hit the valley real hard. They were catching more than they could handle, so that became part of the norm. You're from El Salvador, type everything up, pull it out, sign this, you're free to go. So it has happened before, but just not to this scale. And of course, with the number of people retiring, the workforce is getting smaller. The ones that can actually do the field work getting smaller. And a buddy of mine's got a couple of guys that don't know they're assistant chiefs, and from time to time they will go out to the station and help process. But that's the exception, not the rule.
Well, and you're saying that if you need to get it, we can
okay, if you pause that for a second.
We have to cut it all the way.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.